Okay, so here we have a 1986 to 87 Ideal Big Bird. Storytime Big Bird where you can put the cassettes in the back and he goes along with the book. So what we have is we had two of them. I purchased two of them, one at the garage sale and one at a thrift store. Paid about $5 to $10 a piece. Neither one were working, so I brought them home to see if I could figure them out. Looked around on YouTube, on Google, couldn't really find anything, so I just started experimenting to what worked for me. Hopefully it'll work for some of you out there that have a similar issue, either an Ideal Big Bird or the Cookie Monster or the Oscar the Grouch. So first, what tools you'll need? Well, this is what all you need. You need a soldering iron, you need some fresh solder, a Phillips head screwdriver that'll fit the screws. It's pretty small, I don't know the exact, PH1 I guess, a razor blade, razor knife, any knife. I use a razor blade. I think it makes a cleaner cut. I use upholstery thread. It's a little bit thicker thread, and your threading needle. So basically you get home, you put fresh batteries in it, can't figure out what's going on with it. You want it to work for your kids so they'll love it and enjoy it as much as you did when you were in the 80s. So what you do is you put fresh batteries in it, you can't figure it out. It's bugging the hell out of you. You go on YouTube, you look around, you can't find anything. Hopefully this video will help you. First thing you do, you spin Big Bird around. Okay, we got his tape deck. Here's his tape deck. There's 6 screws holding the tape deck in. And as you can see, you got 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and 1 on each side. Once you remove those, this cover will pop off. And as you can see, here's the cover. Take the 6 screws out, boom, top, and then this is what you're left with. Don't mind it, I still have the volume knob and I didn't put the eject button back in, but you can get the picture. Now as you can see, you have these 2 little notches at the top and 2 little notches at the bottom. And what that is for is, if you look inside the Big Bird, he has this plastic shielding around him to where the tape deck sits in. And basically, those attach into that to make it a firm fit. So, when your kid's playing with it or whatever, they can't rip, it apart, basically. So they attach in there. So you just take your little screwdriver, just pop them out, pop them out, pop them out, pop them out. And then you need to make a slit with your razor blade down his butt. So basically, right along, there's a seam that runs right up his butt. Just give him a little butt crack, if you will. So this one I already did. You just cut up the seam like that, and then you open it up. Now when you open it up, you'll see these foam pieces in there. They basically go together like that and give him his girlish figure or birdie figure or whatever you want to call it. So once you cut the butt open, you want to peel it back, basically just like you're rolling it in your hand. Grab one side on one hand and one side on the other and roll it back. And what you'll do is you'll get this. And the tape deck will be sitting in there. One side is for your output of your speaker. The other side is his back for the tape deck. You can't get them mixed up. One has a gaping hole, one has small holes. Pretty simple. So once you do that, this will just peel right apart. It's, there's no tape or glue on it. It'll just fold right in half. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. Not very tricky, but a little tricky. So you take these off. No big deal. So you're left with your Big Bird with a gaping hole in him now, and your tape deck sitting inside of him. Now, what you have inside a Big Bird is you have the piece that connects to his neck and eyeballs. And you see this cord hanging down. This basically attaches to the board, telling him his mouth and eyeballs when to move. Now, if you look at the top of the cassette deck, you'll see that it slides down right in here. So the neck slides down and locks in, and the cord actually goes through that hole. So what you have to do before you rip this off the neck is you have to take the 6 screws out of this. You got 1 here, 1 here, 2 in the back, and then 2 on each side and 1 in each corner in the back. So you take those off and then gently just take this off, and it'll still be attached through the cord, and just come in, and the neck attaches right there. All I did was I used my razor knife just to get in that corner a little bit, and then I just reached my fingers in there and pried it up. So you want to be careful if you use a razor knife doing that, because it could cut another wire, kink a wire, nick a wire, whatever. Now, on one of the Big Birds, the problem was simple. It was just some corrosion in the battery terminals. So I'd suggest checking that first. If it is, I use a little 1000 grit sandpaper, and I just took the battery cover off with those 4 screws on the bottom. That pops off. Clean those up, and then clean the 4 terminals on the actual cover itself. So that would be the first thing to check. Now, there's a guy that has the YouTube video. The solder joint was bad here. As you can see, there's 2 cell phone videos, not the best, but you can see there's 2 solder joints right there with the brown wire and the 2 red wires. If it looks shiny like glass or, like a mirror, then more than likely the solder's good. If it has like a dark brown tint to it, or if it looks dull, it means that the solder is more than likely bad. Now, the other one that I had, the solder on these 4 connectors here was bad. One of them was bad. So I just put new solder on it, as you can see from the top left. See how shiny that is compared to the other 3. Now, the other 3 are still good. I didn't really have to put any solder on those, just that one. And that made the world of difference. That's, cleaned it right up. And you can see there's some solder connectors on the bottom that basically attaches everything on here. I haven't ran into any that had a bad solder connection on the actual circuit board. It's either been back here on those brown and red wires, on the speaker, everything was working, but you couldn't get sound, so there's got 2 little connectors there on the speaker that have solder. Solder those back on if you don't get any sound. Or if you're not getting anything, more than likely it's these over here. This is basically what makes the tape play, gives power to the tape. Your power connectors are over here, and that comes down, as you can see, goes into the battery. One goes into the switch, and the rest go into the front for this piece here. If this can kind of shed light on this. But, so that's the other thing. Basically your solder joints are going to go bad. So you either got, your battery terminals are corroded. They left batteries in it too long. Your solder joints are bad, or they call it cold solder joints. Or if you look underneath, there's actually, if you can see that black little line back in there, it's actually a belt-driven tape deck. Now, you can still get those belts at Radio Shack. If you're in Maryland, Bainesville, I'm sure you could probably get them on websites, but I haven't came across any that were bad. So, mostly all the ones I had were either the solder joints or the corrosion on the terminals from leaving crap batteries in it too long. So basically what you do is, once you get this apart, you take a look at it, see what your problem is. I also ran into one that had some tape jammed up in the corner back there, and it wasn't letting it play correctly. So, there was tape like jamming in there. I just took a peek, and, I was looking all through it. You don't even really have to take it apart any more than it is now, unless it's that belt. So, once you get in here and, you take your soldering iron, you solder these if it's that, or, you solder your speaker wires, or you solder the wires back here, whatever it could be. Then what you want to do is you put the top back on, but before you put the top completely on with screws, you slide the neck wire back through there, attach it back to that white 3-way connector right here, and then you put this on, screw your screws on it, the neck then slides into there. Then what you got to do is you got to take your foam, put it back inside your foam, put the foam back inside your Big Bird, and try to just basically unroll it now on top of the foam and give it the girlish figure that it once had. Now you'll still have this big cut down the side, and basically what you're going to do is, once you get it all up and going, you just take that and you stitch it up, and that's what the needle and thread are for. And as you can see, I stitched this one up. I'm not a seamstress, but it doesn't look half bad. Most of them have a nest that they sit in. I only have one nest, so it is what it is. the kids are going to play with it anyway. It really doesn't matter. And you can't really see the white string in the yellow fur anyway. So once you sew that back up, you got to, take your plastic connectors inside here and put them back in your little grooves. Once you get those clicked in, and everything's good. So then once you do is you'll sew this up. You have all your plastics in, then the only last thing you have to do is put your cover back on. Now, the one thing you do have to do is the eject button. You'll just take that out because it'll get lost if you don't, because it's not attached to anything. It just kind of sits in there and locks into the little slide tray in the bottom. So once you take this off, it really doesn't have anything to keep it from popping out the top. So I just take a little Ziploc baggie and threw that and the screws in it somewhere. But regardless, that's all you got to do is just pop that back in. Now, if you want to test it before you put it all back together, which is what I like to do, you put basically what you can do is you can put your front back on, screw that all the way in, and then take your battery and take those 4 screws out, and over on this corner, you'll see these 2 wires. They actually run to a switch. It's a little plastic pressure switch that when you push the tape in and the eject button pops out, you can kind of see it's a little plastic piece right in there. When the eject button pops forward, it'll press that switch in. That'll actually give the unit power. So if you do want to test it, all you got to do, take these 4 screws out of the bottom. Once you get all those 4 out, pop this switch out. Put the 4 screws back in. Just leave the switch dangling. Come back over to the top. Put your battery, just attach this so you can put your batteries in. Put your batteries in and then just press that switch and, play with your volume. Make sure everything works. More than likely it will. You shouldn't have any problems. If you put it all back together and you can't figure out what it is, make sure that eject button sat in there right and that it's hitting that switch. Because if it doesn't hit that switch, it will not get power, and you'll basically do what I did and for 20 minutes sat there and thought that there was something else still wrong with it, and I just didn't have the eject button in. Nobody's perfect, but we figured it out, and now, I'm putting a YouTube video on here to help everybody out there in YouTube land try to avoid the same mistakes that I made, if you will. So once you get it all back together, you stitch them up like so. You got your, your back on there. Okay, so you're sitting Big Bird up. You want to see if he works, you just pop the tape in. That sound means turn the page in the book.
Sometimes I like to imagine amazing things, like I'm Superbird. Or
and so on and so forth. Not going to bore you all with Big Bird's talk, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to send me an email. I'll try to help you best I can. Again, once you take it off, just be careful of the top part that the cord goes in there. Don't just try to pull it off, because if you damage that cord, that's going to be a little bit of a pain in the ass to replace. But once you get that off, just look at your solder joints. Anything brown, discolored, anything that looks like it's bubbled out. You can see these ones, they have like a fine point to them. They all have like a point. I don't really want to say what it looks like, but you kind of get the gist of what I'm saying. If it looks like shit, more than likely it is shit. All you got to do is get your soldering iron, touch a little bit of fresh solder in there, mix it all around. She'll work good as new. Okay, you don't have to take the piece off and resolder it and do kill the board 100 times and resolder everything on it. Just look for what's bad. More than likely it won't be your board. So, it'll be your connectors outside. And then, just make sure you stitch them up and he'll look good as new. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit me on my, YouTube account. And please put your email actually in the YouTube post. That way I can email you from there instead of actually signing into the account. It's much easier. And if this helped you guys out, if you liked it, please like the post so more people can get some more information like this. So again, it's for 86 to 87 Ideal Big Bird. I'll show you his little tag here. Where's it at? There you go. Can you see that? Yeah, kind of. It looks like shit. Anyway, Ideal Big Bird 86 to 87. Thanks for watching. You guys have a great day.